Hi there. I trained myself on how to fight with a sword. I use treatises written by real-life sword fighters from the medieval and Renaissance era, and I put my effort towards recreating their fighting system. Usually, when people find this out about me, they follow up with, "Why do you do this?" And that's a really good premise for a discussion video. So I loaded up AI and I had it ask me a few questions, and by answering those questions, you're going to get an idea of why people even do swordsmanship training in the modern age to begin with. So the first question that it asked is, why even bother training with a sword if you can just go buy a gun? And I don't hate this question because it is very logical to come to that question, especially when we live in an age where swords have been outdated for centuries. And for me, it all comes down to intention. So I like studying other martial arts. I like kickboxing. I like wrestling. I like jiu-jitsu, and I even like training with firearms. But usually when I'm training those practices, it's coming from the perspective of self-defense. So usually I'm informing myself of those techniques with the intention of using them in a real life self-defense scenario if it ever happens, either to protect myself or to protect my loved ones. And that's that. But with swords, I'm not necessarily training because I intend to use sword techniques in a self-defense scenario. That would just be psychotic, but there's a lot of craziness that surrounds the sword in the modern age on the internet, unfortunately. So to kind of summarize that, the sword is just more interesting for me. It's more interesting, the fighting system is more interesting. It just holds on to my attention more than all the other fighting systems. So I'm coming at more from the perspective of a scholar type of practice, or competitive sport is usually the two angles I'm coming at it with. Pause. So the second question is, what does sword training actually teach you? Now, besides teaching you how to swing a sword, it also teaches you a lot about footwork, discipline, and positioning. So if you were going to do a traditional martial arts system, usually they start you out with open hand stuff and grappling, and then as you progress, they'll factor in the swords, because a lot of the techniques that you would use hand to hand, or a lot of the disciplines you would gain doing hand to hand stuff, correlate to the sword practices. But when you're training with a sword, there's certain positional differences that you're going to make, especially with a long sword or a two-handed sword like this one. The positioning is quite different, even like in the context of one-handed sword fencing. So swords are really all about footwork and positioning. Sword fighting is akin to dancing in a lot of ways, which is why those who are skilled in either discipline can thrive in the other, because it's all about that foot positioning, but it's also about the distance, the measure, specific angles of attack, feinting, a lot of curvature, a lot of geometry, triangles, and things like that. The teaching that you get from fencing can become very metaphysical because of that. So you're learning really about how to move within third dimensional reality. That's the penultimate lesson you're going to gain from historical swordsmanship, is just learning how to unify the body, mind, spirit putting all of that together and then focusing it on that one activity, which is your sword practice. So that's what you're really getting out of doing something like this. Third question, is modern swordsmanship just roleplay or LARP? And I will put it like this. So I am just a person. So I am a modern day human living in the 21st century. I wake up, I work my day job, I binge Instagram reels. I just also happen to know a lot about this combat system. So I'm not necessarily playing a character. I'm not looking for some kind of fantasy fulfillment. Now, there's skills that you get in modern swordsmanship that can enhance those activities if that's something that you do. So, for example, my good friend Mage from Fantasy Survival Guide, he does live action roleplay on the aside from historical swordsmanship. So he may use what he's learned by practicing the real techniques the way that I do. He may use that to enhance whatever he's doing for his live action role playing, but they are two completely different activities. And you don't need one to enjoy the other, or vice versa. Now, everyone kind of has their own way when it comes to this sort of thing. So for me, you know, I'm not really a big cosplayer or live action role player. I'm not even an actor or anything like that. I just really just study the martial techniques, and I use them for like a form of physical exercise, and I compete in tournaments, and I train people from the historical manuscripts. So I don't engage with those fears. Now, there are people who also do historical swordsmanship, and they also cosplay, or they're an actor, or they like to make short films. So they will use what they learn in the other to influence whatever it is they're doing. But it's not the same thing. This is more of a scholar-based practice. This is more academic and more of a martial art than a form of wish fulfillment. So the next question is, what makes swords different from traditional martial arts? So let's break down sort of the road path that you get with traditional martial arts. So when you're going to do something like karate or taekwondo or Muay Thai, you're going to go to a dojo or a studio or a school, and you're going to be trained by a master who is certified in that traditional martial art by some sort of widespread federation of that martial art. And you're going to get recruited into the rank structure where you climb the different belt levels until you yourself become a master and are certified by that federation. So it's very linear, very structured, very formal, whereas with historical swordsmanship, it's unstructured and nothing is really held back from you. So as long as you have a sword and you have a training manual, you're doing historical swordsmanship. And if you're practicing the techniques, you're doing historical swordsmanship. And the book isn't going to hold anything back from you. You can learn advanced techniques, you can learn beginner techniques, and usually you're going to be learning on your own or in a small group of other historical swordsmen or swordswomen. And you're going to be learning alongside them more than you're going to be learning from them. Now, there are some people who do this who don't really go into the manuals, and they're completely fine just getting the knowledge from somebody who has the manuscript knowledge. And once again, I'm not going to down talk anyone's way of doing this, because we all have our own ways of doing it, and I'm not a prick like that. So it's unstructured. Like I said, the groups tend to be smaller, so you'll find a swordsmanship club, whether it's like HEMA or a sword club or whatever, and you're going to train along those guys, and you're going to be learning alongside them. And while, you know, some groups are weirder than others, usually you have the people who know the books really well, and you have the people who are very physically capable. You have the people who are both physically capable and know the books really well. And then you just have people who just want to have fun. So it's more casual, more relaxed sort of experience. And then, you know, both have tournaments. And if you want to compete, you can compete doing both. But once again, historical swordsmanship as it stands is very open-ended, so you don't really have to worry too much about a linear rank structure the same way you would in traditional martial arts. And the fifth question is, why should you even care about any of this? Now, I can't really answer for you why you should care, but I can answer about why I care about it. And the number one thing above is it's both fun and interesting. And I like things that are fun and interesting for me. So it's quite the rabbit hole to go down to read all the manuals and learn the esoteric meaning behind everything and spend hours training a specific technique, then apply that technique flawlessly in sparring, to condition and train to get myself fit for a tournament and doing a really, really good performance in the tournament. That stuff is what keeps me going. And you can get that with other things, but like I said, the sword stuff is just more interesting for me. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. And that's about it. It's fun and interesting is why I care about it. Let me know how you care about it below, if you care at all. So that is basically the 5 questions that the AI gave me to sort of have this discussion about historical swordsmanship. So, like I said, if you also do this and you want to share your thoughts, feel free below. If you want to ask questions, feel free below. Just have fun down there. Do things that are fun and interesting for you if you're looking for something to do with your free time, whether it's swords or martial arts or painting or music or anything. And explore that. Explore your interests, explore what's fun for you, explore your passions. That's how I ended up here. I don't really have any other grand story than that, other than I just thought that this was cool. So with that being said, have a good night, everyone. Welcome to the guild. And I am piecing together the second video for the common lessons, so watch out for that one. See ya.